Thank you for clicking. Welcome back for some more in-depth triathlon analysis, this time for the mixed relay at the Tokyo Olympics. Teams would be made up of 4 athletes, 2 women and 2 men, who would each complete a mini triathlon of a 300-metre swim, 6.8km bike and a 2km run before handing over to their next teammate. The women would kick things off, and just as in the individual, Jess Learmonth of Great Britain set an incredibly high pace in the swim and managed to force a split just here after just 2.5 minutes of racing. It's only a small gap, but Learmonth makes a crucial decision to press on from here and consolidate her gap, instead of sitting up and allowing those teams who missed that split in the swim to catch back on. You can see that Learmonth and the other 3 chasing her waste no time in pressing on, whilst those left behind are trying to get up to speed quickly and catch back up by pedalling with their feet on top of their shoes. Just as in the individual though, a small lead pack of 4 forms at the front, made up of Learmonth of GB, Zafiras of USA, Lindemann of Germany, and Kingma of the Netherlands, who is a welcome addition to this pack, being an exceptional cyclist. You can see Kingma is using these very narrow bars for aerodynamics, something you see in the pro cycling world a lot, but not so much in triathlon yet. This lead pack of 4 worked together extremely well, opening a gap up of 20 seconds early on, and that gap only grows. You can see the stark contrast between the leaders on the left, who are in a team time trial formation, whilst the chasers on the right look like they're on a ride to the coffee shop. If you're one of the stronger teams in this chase pack, like France or Australia, you can't really afford to let this happen. Every second you needlessly lose at this point is another second that one of your teammates has to make up later in the race, just to get back to the leaders. Onto the run for the first leg, and Learmonth and Zafiras open up a decent gap. Lindemann, however, pours some super fuel over herself at the aid station and comes from nowhere to catch Learmonth by surprise, who started to fade towards the end of the run. In fact, Lindemann seems to catch everyone by surprise, and Johnny Brownlee has to quickly swap places with Jonas Schomburg for the handover. Onto leg 2, and the gap opened up by those 4 leading teams is maintained by Brownlee, Schomburg, McDowell and Van der Stel through the swim and out onto the bike. A smaller, more cohesive chase pack of Van Riel of Belgium, Konix of France and Pezzati of Italy is beginning to separate from the rest of the field and claw some time back on the leaders, with Van Riel doing a lot of the work in the wind. Coming into T2, and it looks like Brownlee just gets caught out in the wrong gear around this corner and drops to the back of that pack. He makes up for that though with a very smooth transition and pulls a reverse card on the rest of the lead pack to take the lead. Brownlee averages around 2:45 a kilometre for his run and hands over a 10-second lead to Georgia Taylor-Brown into the third leg. It seemed like no one was aware of this second little ramp on the way down to the swim, as everyone kept tripping down it. You can see as well at this point that the race is beginning to string out a bit, as France and Belgium are closing in on the podium positions. Taylor-Brown manages to maintain Great Britain's lead into the swim, but the USA, France, the Netherlands, Belgium and Germany are all coming back together behind. Onto the bike on leg 3, and Taylor Knibb of the USA, who's a very strong cyclist, breaks away from the chase pack. Cassandra Beaugrand of France does well to position herself on Knibb's wheel, but just a moment later Knibb proves to be too powerful and rides off into the sunset in search of Taylor-Brown. And to be fair to Knibb, she doesn't get too far off, only 11 seconds down on Taylor-Brown, who ends up doing her whole leg completely by herself. A bit further back, and the fight for the podium is still very much on, as Beaugrand begins to open up a gap in 3rd place for France. It's still all to play for as Taylor-Brown hands over to Alex Yee, who, surrounded by the imposing figures of Vincent Luis and Morgan Pearson, looks like he was called up as a late addition to his dad's relay team. Yee starts the final leg with a 20-second gap on the USA and a further 10 seconds on France, with Belgium, Germany and the Netherlands still in the mix. Not necessarily known as a strong swimmer, Yee does well to maintain much of his lead on the 2 chasers as they head out onto the bike. Here you can see a tactical masterclass from Vincent Luis. He reaches down to tighten his shoes. Pearson must hear the Velcro and assumes it's safe for him to do the same, but it's not, and knowing it is going to be tough to beat Pearson on the run, Luis makes a strong attack and opens up a gap on Pearson to move into 2nd. The time to Yee out front is coming down, and Luis manages to make the catch by the end of the first lap, but he's not content with just that and tries to fly straight by. Luis likely knows that going by current form, he's probably the weakest runner out of the top 3, as he's recently had a calf injury, and therefore is trying to use those thick thighs of his to give him a buffer going into the last 2 kilometres. Alex Yee, to his credit, latches straight on and sticks to Luis, whilst Pearson is continually within touching distance but never really able to make full contact. Coming into the final transition, and Yee shows the ice in his veins and swings wide around the corner, passes Luis and slips his feet out of his shoes at the last minute to dismount and lead into transition, a move that earns him a 3-second lead onto the run. Through the first lap, and I think Yee is helped slightly by this pack coming off of the bike, Yee makes it just ahead of this group, whilst Pearson has to navigate his way through in order to catch Yee, although I think Yee would have had too much of Pearson anyway. A nice little bit here, Hayden Wild passes Luis and looks like he's offering some encouragement and tries to pace him back to Pearson. Ultimately though, Great Britain take the gold, USA in 2nd, and France fight back from a slow start to take 3rd. If you made it through to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the analysis, please check out my videos on the men's and women's individual races too. This is something new I've been trying out for the Olympics, so if you would like to see more, please consider subscribing like the 2 other legends who've done so far.